Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Black Girls Theology, the talk show. I'm so happy to have you all here with me today. I'm in a very special place. I'm here at my parents' house in the beautiful Baltimore, Maryland, here with my grandfather and grandmother. This is my grandfather, my grandmother, and my grandparents are up on the wall. I'm so excited to be able to do a show with them today, and I'm grateful that you've allowed all of us to join you in your homes. Black Girl Theology aims to give women the permission to live out loud. So today, what I've done is invited on some men who aim to affirm us as Black women, affirm our calling, and do what they can do to assist us in all things ministry related. I have with us today the Dean of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. I'm so excited to have the Dr. Gregory Howard with us today to have a few chats about being a lifelong learner and educator. We are going to have a little bit of a different kind of table talk today, and our mindful moment will be a video that comes from our Rise Mentorship Institute that I attended in Atlanta back in March. So we have a great show lined up, and I'm super duper excited. Let's get into our mindful moment.
If you want to stand, you may. If as we move through the ritual, you feel like you want to stand and stretch, feel free. I like to sit on the floor. I like to lay out. If that feels comfortable, feel free. Dean Guidry said that we will not let the process have the last word. And I think in an effort to not allow the process to have the last word, we breathe. Yes, breathing is part of the process. So my background is in dance, and I remember my teacher, Kat Wilders, talking about the discipline of being in the studio and doing all of this hard and difficult work so that you could go out on the stage and perform. But she also would run screeching through the studio saying, breathe or you will die. Breathe or you will die. And I think the same is true for ministry. I've lost a lot of friends, a lot of ministers too young because we're not breathing. And so I'd like to offer this meditation that I have titled A Meditation for Women Who Are Rising Together. It's not mine. It's adapted from a woman named Monet Marshall. And I'm going to just ask you to free your hands and to put your feet on the floor, to just take a comfortable position. So again, if you want to sit on the floor, if you want to lay down, feel free. And I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable. So on the count of 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. Bring attention to your feet. Thank them for what they've brought you from. Rejoice in what they are bringing you to. Breathe. Bring attention to your lower legs. Thank them for the waters they've carried you through, from puddles to big water. Rejoice knowing they have the strength to carry you through whatever comes next. Breathe. Bring attention to your knees. Thank them for every time they were bent, every time they hit the ground. Rejoice in their strength, that every bend created the opportunity for every stand. Breathe. Bring attention to your thighs. Thank them for the gift of parting and the gift of closing again when you choose. Only when you choose. And rejoice for the part they play in your pleasure. Breathe. Bring attention to your hips. Thank them for your sway, your special way that connects you across the diaspora. Home. Rejoice in the movement that is yours, all yours. Breathe. Bring attention to your root and just say thank you. Thank you for what is, for what isn't, for surviving, for healing, for creating. Rejoice that it is done. It is over. It is healed. Breathe. Bring attention to your butt. Thank it for being specifically yours, uniquely contoured to you. Rejoice in its commitment to hold you through every dance, every step, every seated moment. Breathe. Bring attention to your stomach. You may even want to put your hand on it. Thank it for loving you even when you didn't love it. Rejoice that as a container, it is what you fill it with, and you always have a new. Bring it. It's carried for you, your mama and her mama before her. Rejoice in the knowledge that every load it carries shifts the baggage for your daughters and her daughters after her. Breathe. Bring attention to your breasts. Thank them for softness and sweetness in a world that wants. Rejoice. Breathe. Bring attention to your hands. Thank them for holding on. Rejoice in their alchemy, their making out of nothingness. Breathe. Bring attention to your chest. Thank it for being sturdy enough to carry your heart and soft enough to leave breathing room for your lungs. Rejoice in its knowledge because that's a lesson. Sturdy and soft at the same time. Breathe. Bring attention to your throat. Thank it for every word spoken. Rejoice, knowing it has so much more truth to bear. Breathe. Bring attention to your lips. Thank them for the silent language they speak in every smile and smirk. Rejoice, because there are smiles and kisses yet to come. Breathe. Attention to your nose. Thank it for smelling and tasting and knowing for measurements and recipes. Rejoice, because flowers and newborn babies and fresh baked bread and ocean air. Breathe. Bring attention to your ears for bringing us the information that we need when we need it. Rejoice in the resonance and the remembrance of sound. Breathe. Bring attention to your eyes. Thank them for seeing and for being seen. Rejoice in knowing that every day, every moment is an opportunity to behold a miracle and to be held as one. Breathe. Bring attention to your crown. Thank it for the wonder on top, which is but a fraction of the one within. Rejoice knowing that your brilliance is inherent, deep ingrained, and cultivated by the ancestors. Breathe. Attention to the whole of you. Your ears may not hear, and you are a miracle. Your eyes may not see, and you are a statistical anomaly. You may not have a womb, and you are still a creator of life. Your skin may be dark, and so is the soil that feeds us. Your skin may be light, and so is the pounded wheat that makes the bread. You may think you have too much. Love it all. You may think you have too little. You are more than enough. Breathe. This is your body. Say your name. Modeled after your mother's body. Say her name or say thank you. That was begot by your grandmothers. Say their names or say thank you. That was begat by your great grandmothers. Say their names or say thank you. That was begat by their great great grandmothers. Say their names or say thank you. Breathe. This is your body, sisters. Time traveling, century surviving, trauma transforming, a never not been here body. You're glorious, masterfully constructed, celestially aligned, in all colors like a gift, sparkling like God, sparkling like the cosmos, sparkling like your mama's body. This is your body. Remember it and keep it holy because it is. Remember your name and keep it holy because it is. Remember your breath and keep it holy because it is. On the count of 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, breathe with me. 1, 2, 3.
All right. I hope that meditation helped you and blessed you as much as it did me the first time I heard it and subsequently every time thereafter. So let's get to our interview. The Reverend Dr. Gregory M. Howard is a native of Lancaster, Virginia, and currently resides in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Dr. Howard is the senior pastor of Union Branch Baptist Church in Chesterfield, Virginia, where he promotes kingdom-like living by unconditionally loving God and all of God's people. Pastor Howard has also served as senior pastor of First Baptist Church East End in Newport News, Virginia, and Jerusalem Baptist Church in Sparta, Virginia. In addition, Dr. Howard is the interim dean and associate professor of homiletics and practical theology at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. Howard is also the president of the Baptist General Convention of Virginia. Pastor Howard holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Organizational Management and Development from Bluefield College, a Master of Divinity degree from Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, and a Doctor of Ministry degree in Preaching from Aquinas Institute of Theology at St. Louis University. He is the author of Black Sacred Rhetoric, The Gospel According to Religious Folk Talk, and Voices Crying Out in the Wilderness, Theological Reflection Where Context Matters. Civically, he is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Above it all, Pastor Howard loves God and the challenge of helping others see God's grace in their own lives by proclaiming Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. Reverend Howard believes that we have been blessed with life and created in the image of God to be and for one another. Therefore, he strives to tear down the many obstacles that keep us from coming together in godly communion. Dr. Howard shares the joy of 4 children with his wife, the Reverend Kimberly Gonche. I believe I said that right. Let's see. Welcome, Dr. Howard.
Good evening, and thank you, Erin. You were on point.
Yes.
You actually had profound pronunciation of Gonche. But thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me, and thank you for being a major contributor to the life, the health, the well-being of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, and also the Global Society by way of your network, by way of this great presentation or platform to present theological thought from a sister, and oftentimes inviting a few others alongside of you to share in this great dialogue. So again, thank you.
Oh, thank you for your kind words.
Yeah.
So I want to have a conversation with you about the importance of the theme of the show is definitely remaining authentic and using that authenticity to bridge the gap between church and academy.
Yes.
But I want to talk to you from obviously the perspective of a dean, but also from the perspective of a pastor, a lifelong learner, a teacher. How do you kind of go through all of these, ranges of Dean Howard, Dr. Howard, Greg Howard to bridge that gap?
And father, brother, husband, friend, all
Yes,
that stuff too.
all of it.
Yeah. Well, I should say firstly that I am deeply humbled by the privilege to serve in the capacities that you have identified. that you have stated. I find it a great joy to be used by God to make a positive impact, I trust, in the lives of so many of my sisters and brothers, while in the same manner, intentionally positioned or postured by God before and among sisters and brothers who pour so much into me. As a lifelong learner, I learn from various texts and contexts. I learn primarily from, it seems, in the most impactful way, but not that which is penned or has made its way through publication, but the lived experience of those whom I, again, am privileged to serve, whether that is at Union Branch Baptist Church and that surrounding community, whether it's our state convention and the affiliation of well over 1,000 churches, whether it is the School of Theology and its many partners, whether it is a community of churches that are affiliated or associated with outside of the Commonwealth that I'm called upon oftentimes to teach or preach or just be in fellowship. And certainly friends, family, those whom I pass by and engage in some type of discourse, I consider them to be the most provocative and text to read, or even oftentimes text that chooses to read me.
Mm-hmm.
Shows unto me what they discern that I am in need of hearing that will further shape me. But I am a lifelong learner, and as you stressed it, I believe that all of us are, whether we choose to be or not. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whether we realize it or not. The mystery of life is that we have no idea how we will respond or handle a particular reality until we encounter it. And so, therefore, we are constantly being shaped or informed in a way, in a manner that through experience, as a teacher, at least, we are made better, or at least we are given a reference um, as we move forward through and after that experience.
Absolutely. So I wanted to go back to something in your bio very quickly. Let me bring it back up. You said, and I feel like this lends to the idea of what my journey to quote unquote bridge the gap between church and academy.
Yeah.
You said that you strive to tear down the many obstacles that keep us from coming together in godly communion. So I want you to expound upon that. And you can kind of have a conversation around that for a moment.
Well, I'm gonna say fundamentally, it is who I be based upon who shaped me and who raised me.
Yeah.
My mother, Mary Elizabeth, my father, John Wesley, my grandmother, Winnie Blanche, who lived right next door to us, or we lived right next door to her. It was the ethos of our community. It was what shaped and influenced our community, our family. And that is what I eventually got to a place where I was able to refine my words and better articulate it within a theological context, that which is grounded in the Imago Dei tradition of theological reflection or theological anthropology. And what I'm saying is that I firmly believe, and as I teach and as I preach, I believe that the Christ experience brings us back into that place whereby we can see more clearly that we've been created in the image of God, and we are recreated. And one aspect of that is being that we are created in the image of God, we are relational, or there's an aspect of relationality called it co-humanity. So we have been created to be with and for one another. And therefore, I believe that I've been called. I believe we all have been called. But I accept my call as one who's been made to tear down or deconstruct any vice, any obstacle, any system or institution that keeps us from coming together and being that beloved community, or coming together in healthy, right, liberating or liberative type of relationship toward one another. So it guides who I am day by day as a person. And that doesn't mean that, my life is void of moments of disagreement and days in which I'm seeking greater clarity, even among those that I know more intimately, my family, my lovely partner and wife. But again, my effort, my drive, my overall zeal in serving is to do whatever we can do to tear down what hinders us from together. Uh, and likewise, I believe the academy, just as the church, is that space that models or embodies community.
Mm,
And when I say academy, I'm speaking specifically to the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology, which is a wisdom community on one hand, but it's a family. It's an open table as well on the other, and that's how learning takes place. That's how growing takes place through the experience where we come together as a community seeking to better improve once again one another in the overall beloved community throughout the global society.
absolutely. So you said beloved community. I love the idea of beloved community. And it is my idea that we can kind of begin to take the negative stigma away from the seminary. The church often jokingly refers to it as the cemetery. I don't see it that way. I think that we can begin to kind of take that stigma away when we look at it as, right, the beloved community, the table. It is another avenue that we use to get to where we're going. I know that Dr. Ebony Marshall Turman told us on one interview that we're just here to sharpen our tools.
Yeah.
This is how we sharpen our tools. So, in speaking about the gap, right, between the church and academy, what has been your experience in seeing that, and kind of how have you lived through it and dealt with it, and maybe tried to even rectify it a little bit?
I certainly appreciate that question, which causes me to ponder, of course. But it's a question that I have been confronted with um, over and over and over again. And therefore, the response continues to evolve. But for the most part, I will stress that, of course, we realize our experience is not monolithic or homogenous as far as a particular church, even a particular academy. But clearly, there is a consistency in even the obvious raising of the question of how do we overcome this tension that sometimes exists within the life of many churches and the academy. I believe that similar to religion in general, which is a set of practices, established by those of us who choose to devote to a particular deity or historical figure that shapes our moral interests and code. That religion is not bad, that sometimes misguided ambition and even evil persons can take religion hostage and use it to advance their own will and their own agenda. So with that being said, I say that there are persons who do that within the church, and there are persons who do that also within the academy. In other words, to give the church a bad name and then also give the seminary a bad name. Because they went through seminary, but they did not allow seminary to go through them.
Yeah.
I view seminary as an incubator of theological thought. I view seminary as a birthing canal of one's better, one's greater, one's more fuller self. I believe that the seminary is spirited by God. I believe that God, who is in all places at all times, spends a lot of time in seminary. And I'm saying that based upon my own personal witness, but also those whom I know lives, according to their own witness, have been made better, but also they have been made better in service of the betterment of others. There is a bifurcation that I will acknowledge, as you stated, though, however, because some churches have had bad experiences or unpleasant experiences by leadership or through those who've been called and privileged to lead certain congregational settings that may have misappropriated the gift, or who may impose a particular teaching that was contrary to the historicity or the tradition or the customs of that particular context. The bifurcation is oftentimes as well found in the church. The church might very well be primarily focused in that of the experience of worship. Some churches are primarily focused um, in community service and engagement. Some churches are primarily focused on that which is relational, and the mending of or attending to the mending of wounds among individuals. And there are other churches that are deeply committed to instruction and teaching. Teaching matters, and therefore the pastor is as well perceived as a chancellor or professor, or the church expects the pastor to stretch the mind in the moment, and through the grace of teaching. I say this. I believe that we all need to challenge ourselves or consider how we can bridge that gap that exists in some contexts by, as those of us who are seminary trained and entering and serving in communities of faith as scholar practitioners, that we can take into account how our point of reference and departure ought to always be that immediate context. I remember when I was writing my dissertation, I spent about a week with Dr. Henry Mitchell and the late Dr. Ella Mitchell down in Atlanta. And I quoted Dr. Mitchell as he shared with me that Greg, when the preacher, and he's published these words to some significant degree, that the preacher has to understand that the congregation or the community of faith is more willing to follow his or her prophetic consciousness when in fact the preacher departs from that community's context or point of reference, their experience. And that's what I'm saying is that teaching is teaching us that which we do not know. Preaching is, putting into words that which we suspect or can't necessarily articulate. I believe, however, that effective Christian education and teaching is one that still does not just simply harness or stand behind the lectern and suggesting that the people of God do not know, as that is an insult to their experience and their intelligence, but take into account what they do know, but may need some refining, you know what I mean, or some edging or pushing. So that's why I employ andragogical type of teaching approaches. There are different pedagogies, but andragogy, the adult learning style and approach to teaching, is one that takes into account experience. It takes into account the learner's readiness, their need to know, their motivation to know, that it's dialogical, truly. It's not just spoon feeding someone something that we think that they should know. And I'll say this before I pause, the late Dr. Katie Cannon, who was a reader and a quasi-advisor for me during my doctoral studies, in her meta-ethical process, she raises that question, so what? And challenges us to raise that question, so what? So we have to understand that that the pew is oftentimes asking, why do I need to know this anyway? Or so what? And we could do a better job as those who are seminary trained of shaping persons at a decent pace, a respectful pace, toward greater knowledge, as we perceive that they could gain, or certainly they're in need of. While again challenging the church as well to dare to stretch yourself, dare to consider that you don't know it all, They're to consider that, again, the mystery of life reminds us that we are encountering things in 2020 that we didn't imagine in 2019 or 2018 or 1978 with this pandemic, COVID-19. And even right now on the precipice of seeing the Confederate monuments come tumbling down on Monument Avenue in Richmond, and all of the social unrest and protests finally bringing about a rainbow or Pentecostal type of experience of all types of faces fighting for justice and standing for those who've been treated unjustly. So teaching, therefore, and the church has to understand, is always made ready based upon the times that we find ourselves facing. And the church, therefore, needs to be stretched, even by this place that they consider to be cemetery.
Wow. Good words. Good words, Dr. Howard.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like that's a lot we all have to sit with for a moment. So I want to say, before we end the interview, I wanted to briefly just talk on your books and then the podcast.
Yes, ma'am.
So how did we get to the titles and the context of the book, and where can we get them from?
Okay. I would say, much like teaching, this is how those two publications in particular came about. A lot of folk don't know, but for 15 years, I practiced nursing. I have a clinical background, and prior to serving pastorally full time and coming back into the academy, I was bivocational and taught. So I say that because my clinical background shapes my hermeneutic as well, oftentimes, and that is, you look at signs and the symptoms, you rule out this or rule out that until you come up with an accurate diagnosis, a prognosis. What shall become of this thing if it goes untreated, and then what matters the most, providing a prescription, a plan of care to relieve one of the malady or the remedy, to provide remedy for the ailment. So I say that because my first publication, Black Sacred Rhetoric, and we're talking about the gospel according to folk talk, religious folk talk, emerged out of a real lived experience. It is actually the product of my dissertation, but it emerged out of a real lived experience. Oftentimes, hearing individuals make statements, holy cliches, axioms, idioms, such as the Lord will make a way somehow, such as he's a heart fixer and a mind regulator.
Yeah.
That were non-biblical, but very much a part of my religious experience. To borrow the words of Geneva Silverman from the kitchen to the amen corner. Our grandmothers and mothers and fathers, and even preachers will exclaim from the pulpit rhetorically, in a way, in a manner that would invoke praise, and that is, ain't he all right?
Yeah.
Or he got up early Sunday morning. What I'm saying is that it's such a rich part and major player in our religiosity or in our lived experience as believers, but there was no context whereby I could find proper commentary. Right. And just as we know, many of the spirituals are prior to the work being done at Fisk and capturing them in penmanship in the late 19th century. I felt that if we were not to capture some of these holy sayings or this Black sacred rhetoric, one generation who would choose to stop using or uttering them would run the risk of us losing them. So I queried persons throughout the nation as part of my dissertation, both qualitative and quantitative type of research. I looked at and asked the saints of old, or most seasoned saints, what's the meaning and the significance of many of these sayings. Some of them were interpretations of biblical texts, such as, you take one step, God will take two. Well, that's a reflection of John 6. You draw nigh unto him, he'll draw nigh unto you. Some were based upon hymns, but some was just religious talk. religious folk talk. And that book captures 55 of them in a form of, in many ways, lectionary, and then provide commentary of what they mean. The second book was that I was asked actually by someone to contribute. I remember back then I was asked along with Frank Thomas and or at least it was proposed to me that Dr. Frank Thomas and Dr. Robert Smith of Beeson were all asked to contribute as 3 African American preachers to this book that was being written on Aristotelian thought and preaching, or Aristotle's rhetoric in preaching. That book never came to fruition, but I did my part and wrote my chapter on the epidictic approach. And long story short, it wasn't published by that compiler. It was supposed to be 6 of us, 3 African American and 3 Caucasian writers. So I took my own writing, and which was a theological reflection, which speaks of recreated imagination, how through Imago Dei type of theological reflection, we can see how the Christ experience returns us back to the state in which God intended us to be in. Rational thinking, relational, moral consciousness, co-contributor or co-creator, and then also having a sense of transcendency. I reached out then to several other preachers that are considered to be serving in clandestine communities, non-homileticians, if you will, but certainly scholars in their own right, but not documented or celebrated homileticians, and asked of them to share with me, what is your theology of preaching that shapes your hermeneutic? And each one of them contributed. And a local sister here with us, my dear friends, Carla Jackson, contributed to that text. Rachel Hackenberg out in Ohio, then Pennsylvania. Marcus Small, I'm sorry, not Marcus Small, he's a good friend of mine as well. Kevin Smalls in Michigan, formerly DC area.
That's the old pastor.
For real?
Uh-huh.
Well, Kurt Clark and James Cook are the other 2. But listen, Kevin and I were in doctoral studies together. We were together for 3 years at Aquinas. Then he transferred and finished elsewhere. Absolutely, that's my AIA brother.
Yeah,
he used to be at Hughes Memorial United Methodist, and then it was at Queen. Absolutely, he's at both.
So I grew up in Queens. Well, not grew up, but that's the church that we had went to growing up.
Then.
Chapel United Methodist Church.
Well, I'm gonna have to reach out and tell them that you're a bright star at Union.
Oh,
but that's my text though, and you can pick it up at Amazon or make an order at Amazon.com.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to hearing your critique. I welcome your critique of the work.
So I did want to say very quickly, I noticed in the conversation about Black sacred rhetoric, I realized that is literally practical work of bridging the gap between the church and the academy, because you literally exegeted the words of our ancestors, and these are the words and the sayings that were brought up in the church. So that's literally the work, right? To bridge that gap and to make it all make sense.
Well said. Absolutely. And you know what? My exegetical work was exercised or done in the pew or by their mothers and the fathers of our faith. And I had to look into the world behind their text, or as they serve as a text. I had to look at the world behind them to help shape this witness of these holy sayings or axioms. And so you are absolutely on point, and I appreciate you making such reference that it is a gift to the church.
Yeah, absolutely. So one more thing. We have at STVU a podcast, Theological Thinking, and it is hosted by Dr. Howard, and he interviews different persons. I think we have information for all right, there we go. Theological Thinking. It airs every first Sunday, and we, the STVU family, would love for you to support us and support our dean. It can be listened to Apple Music. There it is right there. Apple Music, App Store, Google Play, or you can go to our wonderful website and listen to it there. I think we're also running 8-week virtual courses. That's just a little shameless plug. If you want to throw that out there, I'm just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know you got an audience out there. Firstly, theological thinking. I would say this month, we interviewed, or we had Dr. Borkin Sanders, distinguished professor of New Testament studies at the School of Theology, former pastor of Dexter Avenue, now King Memorial Baptist Church. But we talked about the contrasting or the juxtaposition between the 60s or the civil rights era and this current age of social unrest. And then we also brought into the conversation contrasting these two ages, most recent eras, to that of ancient Palestine, and then also the Palestinian tensions that exist now. So check that out. As far as the School of Theology, yes, we're moving to 8-week terms, virtual-based course offerings, so you can be in the comforts of your own home and still be connected just as we are in real time, real live engagement with the distinguished professors of the School of Theology as you make way toward earning your Master in Divinity degree or your Master's in Christian Education degree. So check us out. Check our website out. Classes start August the 10th. We'd love to have you as well. If you already got the MDiv, apply for that DMin program, and you will be blessed, and you will be a blessing to our wisdom community as well.
Well, thank you for joining us, Dr. Howard. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much.
Of course, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Be blessed and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yes, ma'am. Be blessed.
Okay. Hey, people. I'm so excited to come back today. Like I said, this is a very special episode for me. Not only am I sitting here in the midst of my family, here in my mama's house, she has a corner with so many pictures, and it's bringing me so much joy. I'm so excited to dedicate today's show. There we go. Dedicate today's show to my grandparents. We have the lovely Persia and Antonio Canales Sr. We have Shelly Keys Sr. That's Roxana Keys. And I'm just so happy to be here with my grandparents and younger pictures of my family. It's just very special to me to be home, especially for tonight's table. Y'all, tonight's table is about to be so dope because I'm sitting at home with my family, and I'm about to be joined by some of my STVU family, my brother and my sisters from STVU. Now, we have the Minister, Kari Jackson. Woo! Hey, Kari. You're muted still. Okay. Hey, welcome to tonight's table.
How are you?
Hey. I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
We have a few people joining us at tonight's table. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring up Antoine Jefferson. Woo! Hey, AJ.
Hey, how y'all doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing good. How
That's
y'all?
good. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about tonight's table. I just feel like it's family on family.
That was a dope interview.
It was a really dope interview.
Really? All right, let's talk about it. I gotta bring up my homegirl.
Yes.
Kelly. Hey, boo.
Hey, Kelly.
Hey.
So, y'all, here's the thing. You know me, you know I'm a planner. You know, I got next year planned already. I'm a planner. So today, I'm so excited, literally, that I'm sitting here, right, at home, literally with family. My mom and daddy's downstairs, right? Because I just feel it. I feel the energy, you know, like they're guiding.
Oh, what kind of surprise you got for us?
Y'all ready?
Yes.
Yes.
It's just like, come on, Erin, just get through it.
What you got? What kind of surprise?
So I wanted to do something fun today.
Okay.
Okay.
I figured we would invite the people to ask us questions.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
That's dope.
I thought that would be cool if we invited the people to ask us some questions. Now I did want to start with, let me see. Kelly got a twin.
I'm trying to get this internet together.
One was smiling and one wasn't. That was pretty dope, Kelly. I like that.
I had to switch over.
I do want to start before we open up the floor. Actually, if anyone is watching live and you want to just go ahead and chime in, we can see your comments and we will bring up the questions as you ask them. But I did want to start with, how are we maintaining self-care in the midst of pandemic, police brutality, and Pentecost? I got that from Carrie and I'm running with it. That was my one time citing my source. Now it's mine.
Just as long as you cite me, honey.
Okay. So how are we holding up in the midst of it all?
I'll let the ladies go first, and while I think about my answer.
Well, for me, so taking moments to breathe, taking moments to feel my feelings. Like, I've always been an emotional person, and you know, growing up, you're kind of taught that emotions are like a negative thing, and I never felt that way. And now that I'm like fully in my own space and in my own thoughts, that I know that my emotions help guide me through life. And so owning my emotions, owning how I'm feeling. If I'm just not feeling it today, I'm not feeling it today. We are dealing with what seems like the world imploding in on itself, right? So the best thing that I am doing for me is taking time for myself and knowing that how I show up for myself is one of the most important and most prevalent things that I can do to show my resistance to the systems that deny my personhood, that deny my humanity. Making sure that I meditate, making sure that I show myself grace. When I don't show up for myself like I should, just be patient with myself, taking time for myself. But I could talk a lot, so I'm gonna go.
It's okay. Those are all good though. Those are good. And they're practical tools. It's stuff that people could do right now.
Yeah.
What about you, Kels?
I would say for me, I just been trying to go to sleep when I can. Like the first week that all of this started, I didn't sleep well. So going to sleep, working on discernment, when to say something, when to be quiet, when to act, when to just watch, and just trying to figure out. And of course, all of us are in there. Where do I stand? What side am I on? Do I go and burn something down? Or do I try to sit and pray for these people or take them some water? Or, you know, do I go out there and march? Because COVID-19 it's like so many different things. And it's just discerning, where should I be? What should I be doing? Who do I help? When do I speak up? Because there's times when we should speak. And then there are other times when people are so foolish sometimes that it'd be wasting your breath. So speaking to the right people at the right time, and just knowing that the change won't be rushed. So knowing that this will be a process, we want immediate change a lot of times. And I think some things will be immediate, but other things will take a long time. Our people have seen oppression for over 400 years. So it's not going to be any quick fixes to anything. So I think that's one thing for all of us to keep in mind. It won't ever be a quick fix. And we probably don't want a quick fix because it won't last. So just enduring that process and knowing that things will change, we just got to stay in it and not let this be a moment that we get caught up in emotion, and then a month from now everybody's over. And then we have to stick to the plan and run the marathon.
Mm-hmm. It is a marathon.
Yes.
So I'm in all of those spaces.
So I agree with what's been said, and I mean, I'm still a bit angry. I'm still angry. Just this is like one of the first times I'm really really able to say it and talk to our school, our classmates about this particular issue, because in school, in our classrooms, y'all know the temperature of our classes are like. We going all the way in, and then we find God in it, right? That supports what it is that we feel, our perspectives, and it's just an amazing merge that is really hard to explain at STVU. So now that we're not in class and these things are going on, well, we're in class, but you know what I mean. It's different. No kickback. Opportunity for us to sit, eat, and chat, and kind of have overflow discussion. That'll come soon. But my point is that I really feel like the pandemic and the injustices happening really concurrently together at the same time really has impacted how God has really presented the results, the product of this, the unity, the people standing. I mean, you had no choice but to be home watching the video and seeing what happened. And there was no, there was no confusion about this one. In all of the other cases, there was things that were put together, and then, there was some kind of quote unquote conspiracy to come up with this is why it happened. There's no confusion here. We watched the life of George Floyd escape his body as white and black together were saying, "Please stop, get off of him." The man said, "I can't breathe." So I'm angry. And then to think of it as my self-care, to answer the self-care portion of it, I have decided that I'm going to wait until I allow some of my emotions kind of, just time before I go out and march and do some things. I'm marching. I'm telling you, I'm going out there. I don't care if I'm marching by myself or our team. We gonna march. But I want to march with a cause and a purpose and a strategy. I want to mobilize. I want to be a part of the solution more so than the initial emotional response. And so have to partner with those who are standing in the gap for us now, taking rubber bullets and tear gas and, are out there sacrificing their time, their lives, their jobs for some, for the freedoms for us. And I just feel like we all have a voice, a platform. We should use it. Because this is really historic time. And so let's continue to do our best to unify in these moments, keep the negativity away, and just be agents of change.
Good stuff. So y'all know my mind moves so fast and I'm always getting a new idea. So like I said, I want this segment. I want people to join us and ask us questions. That is how we are going to practically bridge the gap right now. That's what we're doing, right? We want the church to ask us questions. That's what we're doing right now in this very moment, in this second. Now, I'm looking on my phone because people are also, I ask people to also text in questions. However, I want to talk about the gospel according to grandma. The gospel according to grandma and how we're at tonight's table. So like what's something, let's say, what's something that grandma cooked or mama cooked and y'all was at the table and like God showed up because of that dish, because of that conversation. Right?
That's pretty dope. And I appreciate you sharing that. Let me tell you something. I shared a message with my family the other day because one of the things that George Floyd said, one of his last sayings was, "Mama, mama." And at the time when I watched the video, I didn't know that his mom had passed away 2 years ago. So 2 years prior to that happening. So he was calling his mom. His mom was no longer here on earth. And in my message, I was kind of sharing how it's amazing that the foundation of the theology that most of us have comes from our mom.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Turman said last week, a couple weeks out, that it was that theology that really spawned into what we know as womanist, or the theology that has now have that academic approach and that support behind it. She said it went from the kitchen table to now we can really support what was happening then at a much academic level, which was so powerful and profound. When she said that, I was like, wow. The gospel according to grandma is, to me, the most sustaining, the most penetrating gospel message that I believe the African-American culture have and will forever see.
Mm-hmm.
You had asked Dr. Greg a question, Dr. Howard a question about the academic versus the church. And, I look at it as tension about how, we seem to know that there is a divide. We're still trying to figure out why, because I don't care where you are and what you do, you need kind of both.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever watched the movie Do the Right Thing, the students went to go eat at KFC and the locals were mad at the students. And if you listen to the conversation, they would say, oh, you think you all that because you in school. A lot of that tension happens in the church as well. And what happens is that both have somewhat a distorted reality. Look, we need to be with those that are in community, and both the community should be with those who are really studying and researching and have data to support what it is that we go through. So Mama's theology is the foundation of it all. Because guess what? Mama can bring the educated, those who got PhDs. Mama can bring the one in screaming thug life. Mama's theology can touch those who are, all over. And bring us all to the table, even with the pictures behind you on the wall, and have us all listening. I don't know another more profound voice than that of a mother's theology.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm sorry, very quick, before you go, Kari, I hear my dad in the kitchen eating some chips. So I'm going to say it loud enough. Maybe he would come out and chill with us and hang out with us at the table and also talk about the gospel according to grandma. It would be according to little grandma from North Carolina. That's a serious gospel right there. So let's see if he'll come out. Kari, go ahead.
So the importance of grandma's gospel, and for me, was that, for one thing, we all need to be nourished. We all need to eat, right? And the thing of it is that the cliche, or the fact of the matter, is that God is love. And how grandma cooked, how our mamas cook, how our aunts cook, how our uncles cook, how our fathers cook, how we cook. We cook with the intention of loving on the people that come to the table. And like Antoine said, everybody got to come to the table. Everybody needs food. And so with that, we couple this womanish idea that when I'm stirring these collard greens that came from the earth, that I plucked with my hands, that I sowed the seeds into the soil. Like, this is because we're going back. We using grandma. So grandma who worked the field, that who tended to the nourishment of the seed. Not only the nourishment of the person, but the whole meal was love.
Yeah.
Before it came to the kitchen, there was love in the earth. You know what I'm saying? There was the speaking to the earth so that you would have a good harvest. Like, if for anybody who has a green thumb, you know that it takes a multitude of things to allow that plant to grow. So me being from the South, me being from the country South, not there's a metropolitan South and there's a country South. So there's a mixture of you having these grandmothers and these aunts and these mamas who put love who put nourishment not only in the it wasn't so much about the nutritional value of the food, but it was also about the intentionality of the preparation of the food.
Mm-hmm.
And so providing space. Providing space for people, even for people who were ostracized in other parts of our community. They still had space at the table.
Yes.
So for me, Grandma's Gospel and Grandma's Theology, it holds space for me to not have to. I can come to the table and be in my whole self. I don't have to fragment myself. I don't have to dissect myself. It's always, again, it's a womanist principle. It's always both and, never either or. Right? I don't have to choose what part I'm gonna be. I can just
someone gonna love you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be me. I don't have to. It doesn't have to be this like how do I need to shift? How do I need to bend and break myself to be? No, ain't none of that. You can just be you at Grandma's table, and that's God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Showing because God knows who exactly you are.
That's good.
And you don't have to change. So that's the beautiful thing about Grandma's Gospel.
That is. You gave it to us. All right, Reverend. So we are going to switch. We're going to switch a little bit. And we're going to talk about being our whole selves. And but first, before we talk about being our whole selves in all spheres, right? I want to bring up another one of my homegirls. Listen, I love y'all. Kelly was already here, so Kelly coming back. But you know, my homegirl who lives right around the corner from me. You see one, you gonna see the other. We don't cut up or anything. We behave all the time, every time we're together.
Right.
We're very well behaved. Because well-behaved women always make history, right?
Sure.
Amen. Sure. So without further ado, we're gonna bring up the minister Amanda Danielle. I'm sorry, it's Amanda Danielle. I gotta say Danielle. Is she gonna get me if I don't say Danielle?
I was gonna get you if you didn't say Danielle.
Hey, how are you?
I'm blessed.
Hey Amanda, what's going on?
Hey Jay, so
how are you?
Feel that energy that you bring.
Come on. Yes. Madam President and
y'all, I just want you to know before we go back into like our conversational pieces.
Yes.
I just want you all to know how absolutely full I really am from the interview. From the mindful moment, because that really took me back to Rise. Yes. Rise was everything. That's when me, Kelly, and Amanda got really close. Mm-hmm. So from Rise, from the mindful moment to the interview to now, and like I said, sitting in the corner, I don't know. I just can't express it enough. I'm so overwhelmed with joy, and I'm so happy to have my family at the table with me tonight.
Yeah.
We're proud of you too. How about that?
Oh,
very proud.
We're very proud of you.
Thank you. So my daddy did not come out to tonight's table. He went back downstairs. So, let's talk about being our whole self, right? And bringing our whole self everywhere we go. You want to start that off, Nanda?
Wow.
Your whole person.
My whole person. I've actually been wrestling with that lately. Wrestling, but finding comfort in that finally. My transition here and being at a school who just lets me live in my rowdiness. And I was just thinking about how that's so God ordained to just live in your truth, to stop putting ourselves in boxes. Like my most radical act of holiness is just being who God created me to be. And that might not be the Proverbs 31 woman, and it might not be Deborah or Esther. It just might be the girl who starts a fight in class because y'all haven't been reading your feminist theology, your womanist theology, And I was really joking about it with my boyfriend last night. I was like, the Holy Spirit told me that sometimes people want you to pull up. And you just have to honor what the whole, it's not like in a violent way, excuse my slang, but it's in a way that like, I'm just honoring. If you don't speak up, who will?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not putting up the fight, who will?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just learning to get out of that church girl routine and even stop calling myself a heathen or a heretic. Like separating from that. No, I'm still a Christian who loves God.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
And I'm still a woman of God. I just don't look the way that you expected me to. I don't act the way that you thought all Christian girls had to act. So I'm learning to just embrace that fire and live in that fullness. Like even last week when we had the call about, being in the, what's going on in the world right now. And I had to be honest and be like, hey, I don't want to do this no more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. I can't keep. That's living in my fullness every day and setting boundaries and saying no or saying yes or having to speak up in a way that people aren't used to hearing women speak up. So I think it's about once you start to embrace it and accept it, then you get to live it without any issue. You're not wrestling with yourself all the time. You're not wrestling with God. I don't look in the mirror and see a woman that God is ashamed of anymore. I look in the mirror and I see a woman that God is so proud of.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you're doing and being exactly who God called you to be.
That's good.
Wow.
That's good.
Sounds liberating to me.
Yeah. Goodbye.
Oh man. So I want to very quickly add to that conversation because I am still struggling with walking in that fullness, right, of who God created me to be. People will ask me, "Oh, so you're a preacher?" If you know me, you know I will very quickly say no. I will say, absolutely, I'm not. I'm a teacher. And I got some friends, I'm not going to say their names, Korean. I have some friends who tell me, right, don't preachers teach? Like, do you not proclaim the gospel? Do you not proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ? Are you not doing liberating work? And
Me?
yeah, so even AJ, like all my friends are very affirming, but like Amanda said, just really walking in that is the key. Because I mean, people could tell me all day, every day, "You're a good preacher, you're a good teacher, you're doing the work, da 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 da." But if you don't believe it, and if you don't see God in that for yourself, then that's not going to matter.
Yeah.
Right. So I have I've been really just walking in my authenticity as it comes to ministry and just confidently just being whoever God has called me to be in that moment.
Right.
So in that moment, if I'm a preacher, yes. In that moment, if I'm just a teacher, yes. In that moment, if I'm supposed to go in a corner and pray, yes. And I told somebody, when you tell people that you're getting the Masters of Divinity, they always say, "Oh, so you're gonna be a pastor?" Always. That's it. I oftentimes tell people, I'm going to be a preacher of the gospel in whatever capacity God has for me.
That's right.
Right.
That's dope.
So that's what I am with living my full self and my whole self. And yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I think we all need to, like I said before, allow ourselves to sit in what grace is, right? And especially for ourselves and being able to show self-compassion. Because the thing of it is that I think Dr. Howard spoke on this earlier, is that you have people who go through the seminary experience but don't allow seminary to go through them.
Yeah.
It's quite evident. You can see it. I saw it when I went through seminary. People who wanted to hold so tightly to their faith and their religion that they weren't allowed to release and allow God to move how God wanted to move in their lives. And so the reality when it comes to being your most authentic self and being unashamedly that, however that shows up, that's a liberation that is tremendously divine.
Yeah.
Tremendously it's what God has for us. I see God.
Yeah.
I see God as a liberator. That's gonna be with me until I'm not here no more.
Yeah.
has the gospel of Jesus Christ and my relationship with God has allowed me to be liberated in that. Like because I've allowed myself to go through the journey, and I allowed seminary and life itself to kind of flow through me, I can embrace what that looks like a lot more. And yeah, like it doesn't negate the fact that you still wrestle with, because you are in community and you are in this society, so you are bombarded by images and expectations of what you're supposed to be. But the more that you sit in the more you sit in yourself, and the more you connect with the eternal, the more confident you become in saying like, oh, if I'm a preacher, then I'm a preacher. If I'm a teacher, then I'm a teacher. And all that I do, God will be glorified.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
All things that I do.
That's it.
God with the glory.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what gives me peace.
I think
Y'all dropping gems.
I think for me, I'm still, I'm still working on me. And I don't know how long this might be for the next 5-10 years, because for me, honestly, I honestly at times struggle with the whole piece of what circles, right? Where do I place myself? Where am I? And seminary has really helped me to do the math, if that makes sense, because you start to separate when you notice that there are just things that just don't make sense, and then there's people who are just not good people. And I'll say it this way: I'm on Erin's show with some amazing sisters who have some power in dialogue, both in preaching, in sharing, for relationships, friendships, and then there's circles that that don't really like to hear that or accept it in the way it is. We all have those feelings and those things, but I disagree with a lot of the circles that I see when it comes to ministry for me personally. And so it finds me to have to change who I am. AJ is the kind of person I just want everybody to get along. I want to be, I know they say you can't be friends with everybody. Let me tell you about me. I love everybody. I want everybody to be good. I want the world. And here's what I'm learning in my preparation time. It's impossible to believe or think that every single person is going to accept you, who's going to appreciate you, who's going to bring you on board. It's just not. This is not what we are about. Preach the gospel. Share them. You can love everybody, but Jesus didn't bring everybody up to the tiers of prayer. He only had a select few that he would roll with, And so my goal, my prayer is that, in this season, as God continues to keep me on the preparation path, that I can discern the kind of responsibility. My sister Amanda, she really has a ministry of specificity. Amanda knows what God has called her to do. And she's serving it, and we all know this, right? And so what I'm learning is that walking that out, talking that out, identifying it, and having no problems sharing it is a challenge for all of us, but it's necessary if we're going to change the world. We have to, because we can't change everything. God didn't call us to change everything. He called us to something. That clarion call means that we have to focus on what that is and stick with it. So that's my becoming me means I'm still in progress. I got construction paper all around me, and pray for me, y'all. I'm still on my way.
Yes, sir.
Yes, amen. Kelly, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I really just agree with everybody. I think, like AJ was saying, it's giving yourself room to grow. And knowing that you're not perfect, because I think we get caught up with that in the church a lot. If you mess up, it's like something wrong with you, or you're not holy enough. And we make mistakes. It's part of growth and part of growing, and just being unapologetically you. I think part of that too, if we think about current events, being Black or being exceptional or whatever, however you want to categorize it, we sometimes think that if we make mistakes, it's going to be harder for us, and it's going to be harder for us to make help other people because we already have so many barriers in front of us. So it's like, I can't mess up. And a lot of times we don't take the risk because we're scared of failing. And I think sometimes we have to retrain our minds to just take the risk. And if you fall, you fall. But you don't want to live with resent and say, well, I didn't do it. No, we need to start taking more risks and being more proactive, so we won't look back and think about what we could have done.
That's good.
That's good. So, 2 more questions, and then I guess we'll call it a night. Y'all know I can sit on here and talk all night, but I just had 2 more points that I wanted to raise at the table. Let's start with, which one? How did we intentionally seek God today? So, one of my upcoming projects and my upcoming blog series, I'm going to talk to people, and I'm going to talk to myself, and I'm going to dialogue about how we can intentionally seek God. So we talked about how we go to seminary, but we don't allow seminary to go through us. And I think that's because oftentimes people see God in the 66 books of the Bible, and that's it. God spoke from Genesis to Revelation, and that is it. We forget that Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, Paul, those were all people who they just happened to be alive at that time. So take, for example, the Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, the Gospels according to them. They're the Gospels according to them because they're the ones who wrote the Gospels. So I'm about to start a blog project, the Gospel according to Erin, the Gospel according to Antoine.
That's right.
Marie, Kelly, the Gospel according to Amanda. What is your gospel? How do you see Jesus? And how do you intentionally seek God in every day? Because right now with the church buildings being closed, and I'm praying that pastors continue to have wisdom in reopening. We're going to pray for that. With the church building being closed, I feel like there's been tension, a lot of tension, because the same people who oftentimes have God in the box of the Bible also have God boxed in those 4 walls. So in these moments, it is harder than ever for a lot of people to seek after God, because that's how they're used to meeting God. And I don't fault them for it, because if that's what you know, that's what you know, right? And then it's the persons who know better to help you. So like I said, it's been my journey recently to intentionally seek God and ask people how they are intentionally seeking God every single day. So I sought God today in my therapy session, and in trying to seek clarity on a new situation in my life, right? So I sought God there because to me, God is all things. So God was wisdom in that moment. And I was intentional about being present in that moment. And I was intentional about feeling God in that moment through my therapist.
Yeah.
So for me, that was I sought God. What about y'all?
So for me, I try to seek God like every day, like literally, because I know how I can get, and I'm extreme. So I try to stay out of jail. Because I'm just extreme. Like I'll be the person that'll be on the front lines, and it's like you can't do everything that comes to your head. That's me being unapologetically me, right? So I thank God and my mama.
I go out there on the front line, Amanda be stopping me.
See, I thank God and my mama for keeping me out of jail and keeping me alive. So I think
Erin, do you have a plan?
Going back to the church comment, I think a lot of times in Black churches, we depend on our pastor way too much.
My God, Jesus.
Our pastor is our leader, but you can get a prayer up just like your pastor can. You can get, you know what I'm saying? So that's one of the biggest things that I think bothers me with the Black church. Your pastor is not your God. So with that, and knowing that you don't have to be in the building to worship, your living room can be your sacred space. Your car, like me in the car or me in the bathroom, I get some of my best ideas.
Oh my goodness.
When me and God are talking, and I'm like cleaning the tub.
Yeah.
So it's just don't put God in a box to the point where you have to be in a specific space that has a cross and a pulpit And that's the only time you can speak to him, because we have to be more independent as Black people with how we reach God, how we talk to him, how we talk to him or her, Mother God or Father God, whoever you refer to God as, respectfully. Just being mindful that no matter where you are, God is there with you. And I see God in other people. Today, my intentional part was I'm trying to put together, I'm from a really rural area, and it's still separated by train tracks. So for the most part, Black people live on one side, white people live on the other side. So there's been racial tension since I'm sure the city became a city. So I'm trying to put together like a reconciliation commission, similar to what they did after apartheid in South Africa. So my intentionality is, who do I need to talk to? Because I want to talk to the people that God wants me to talk to. And I want that conversation, that initial conversation, to be between people that are for me and not people that will try to bring that down or harm me or anybody else in my community. So I was really intentional listening for, should I call this person? Should I reach out to this person? And it was I got a lot of no's. Because sometimes we think people are for us or for our people, and they're not. So I got a lot of no's. I got some yeses that were surprised just from God. Like, should I call this person? Should I reach out to this person? So that was my intentional moment of, you know what, who do I need to talk to, and who do I possibly need to stay away from until we gain some traction.
That's good.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So for me, like, as I reflect back on my day, so I wouldn't necessarily define myself as a universalist because I'm missionary Baptist, but I do see God in everything. I see God in the trees. I see God in the clouds. I see God in the breeze. I see God in everything. So for me, I saw God in the sky, with the impending, because the sky was a grayish color, right? So there's a storm coming, and so but the clouds were just so white and full, right? So for me, and just how I interpreted that and how I received that, was that even though like we often associate storms as something being negative, right? But we don't often find the necessity of the rain. We don't find the necessity of the wind blowing the seeds to from one part to the next part, so it can fertilize something.
Oh, that's good.
The fullness and the abundance of the rain sitting in the cloud that allows you to have hope in the expectation of what's coming.
Yeah.
So for me, that's how God manifested God's self to me today. It was just like a moment of gratefulness to be able to interpret and to be able to see that though what we see with our natural eyes and what we see on the surface level, there's always so much deeper. There's always so much more. And even going back to Kelly and in the conversation about the church and how specifically in the Black church, how we just put so much on the pastor and put so much on the four walls and put so much in going to a building, is that for our culture and for us, the notion and the idea of critical thinking is not pushed in the church. To be able to investigate the text, to be able to ask God exactly what you feel in. Because for generations, we're told not to question. You don't question God. You don't question, and that's what has created this harmful mentality of going solely to the pastor to get your, like, how do I move? How do I breathe? How do I turn? Because we don't, and that's where we bridge the gap of the academy and the church, is that to be a Christian is to love God with mind, body, and spirit, right? So you bring your mind to the church, you take your mind to the academy, you take all of yourself to all of these spaces and think about what the text says. You question why is Hagar the villain and Sarah is the hero. Why? Who am I in this text? Am I the African, the Egyptian slave, or am I the like who am I in this? And so if you don't see yourself, you have to investigate what is given to you. And that's what liberates you. That's what allows your religion to stop being a slave religion. Because if we really think about religion has been used to enslave the masses, right?
Yeah.
Not spirituality, not true connection, and not development of faith. So this is about relationship, not so much about checking the boxes, because checking the boxes won't get you in, right? It's that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll be brief unless one of if y'all want to jump in. I have been really checking myself lately, especially through the pandemic, about God's love. I know we say that all the time, God's love. So many times people preach about all the different Greek translations of love and what love does and how it's supposed to look. And then there's people who define their own love. Well, I'm going to tell you as it is because this is love. For me, love is really taking precedence of, is really taking the things that I've learned, the things that were taught, the things that we brought to seminary. I am now looking through it through God's love. If it doesn't fit God's love, even if somebody can pull a scripture and say, well, look at this scripture. This is what the scripture says. I'm at a place now where I'm doing critical analysis on some of the things that I believe, that I see, things that were taught, things that we just live by, just because there's we all know it and this is what we live by. And really kind of saying, does it fit into Christ's ministry? What do we know about how Christ dealt with certain things and how he responded? And really kind of coming up with my own absolute feeling about how to go about things. And there's a lot of taboo topics and a lot of different discussions that excludes God's love completely out of it. And so a lot of where our theology is being formed and what we're talking about, the way that I'm seeking God is that I'm really saying, if it doesn't fit into the profile of what I know and what I see and my own personal experience of what I know about Jesus Christ, I'm not receiving it. And I don't care how many scriptures you pull. I don't care how many references. I don't care how many Greek translations you pull up. Because people, as you say, use religion to control people in so many ways. And what the first thing that people who want to dominate through scripture says is, can you pull a scripture and a reference to explain why you feel the way you do? That's a pitfall. When people ask those questions, really what they're saying is they're going to disagree with your interpretation, no matter what you preach, no matter what you say to support how you feel. So they have to exclude something about the characteristics of God just so that they can control you, And so don't tell me it's God's will that 100,000 people had to die over coronavirus. Don't tell me that George Floyd had to die so that this country can unify. Don't say those things to me, because if it doesn't line up with how God loves all of us, that he died for the world. He didn't die for just Christians. God so loved the world that he gave his only. So I don't tell me and try to put me through the lens of it was. Listen, don't get me started, y'all. But I just feel like hearing it God's will. You just simmer down. We're in a different situation. We're in a different time. We're in a different world. So my thing is, and I'll stop here saying, if it doesn't line up with my definition, my experience, and the way that I see God's love, I don't receive it. And that's just me.
Amen. Okay, I'll go last. I'm gonna be briefer than AJ was. He lied to us. About being intentional. So today I was actually telling my coworker about my journey here and how I ended up in Richmond, and it just kind of made me sit with the lessons I've learned. And so I'm kind of like Erin today. I had a wisdom moment with God, that how much I've had to learn and how much I've applied it and didn't even realize it, and how I needed to get these negative thoughts out of my head. Like as soon as AJ said Amanda knows what she's called to do. I was like, you're a liar. I have no idea what I'm doing. But I have to, like, you don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing every day. But I'm getting beyond somebody else having to affirm me. I'm learning that you're here because God wanted you here. You're doing everything God wants you to do. You have the voice that God gave you. So it was just that moment of like wisdom and affirmation that I have to believe in myself. Everybody else can't hype me up forever. And what happens when they can't hype me up? I have to be intentional in accepting God's love, accepting God's call, accepting what God has for me. And then, like I said, all these lessons that we're learning now from Corona and what's going on in the world, and making sure that we apply them. God is giving us wisdom, and we need to do something with it.
Yeah.
We have to be intentional with that. And then my second one, the ways I've been connecting with God is, y'all, I miss church. And I didn't think I would miss church. I enjoy sleeping in on Sunday. It's nice having the extra time, but I miss worship. I miss the shift in the atmosphere. I miss being responsible for the shift in the atmosphere. I miss being the one that said, okay, I got to pick a verse and a prayer that's about to turn this church up. I miss it. And so I realized that I've been connecting with gospel music in a way that I haven't in a while. And I've been singing again, or just around the house, not just waiting for moments with my friends or whatever, just making sure I'm intentional about singing whatever hymn is on my heart, whatever, even if it's the same lyric. Like today,
go ahead, Amanda. You go ahead and help yourself.
Today has just been for your goodness. For your goodness. They sang it the other day at George Floyd's memorial, and I just had for your goodness stuck in my head.
Jesus.
I'm ready to send myself into a Baptist fit anytime I hear it. So it's just being intentional about making that space that's outside of the four walls, like Erin said. Like, it's bigger than just church, but we can create those church moments wherever we go. And I've had some church moments just being with my friends, or while we're eating and a song will come up, or being on a panel and something will come up. Those moments, like, I've just been intentional about making it. If, like I said, if it's a hymn on my heart, I'm gonna sing it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go for it.
So, real quick before we leave tonight's table, AJ and Kelly have some news. AJ has some news on behalf of Awesome God Radio, which is host radio. Thank you for hosting Black Girls Theology. I'm gonna let him tell y'all. It's really major. Okay. And then Kelly has an event coming up next week. So AJ, then Kelly. So Kelly, then.
So I want to say that you are referring to our nomination for Spin Award. Okay. All right. That's good. Yes, we appreciate it. And we are nothing. We're just like a platform. Can you imagine Facebook with no people on it? That's what Awesome God Radio is. But when we have persons like Erin, her show, her amazing show, and people to bring content and their vision, it really makes it colorful. So shout out to you, Erin, for being so dope and really going out and doing this. So we appreciate it. But y'all can go vote. Spin Awards on my page. I have posted the announcement with the link. So I will make sure to post it in the comments of this live here for those who are listening. So thank you. That's dope. I appreciate it.
Kelly, you have something coming up next week. Thank you, Amanda. I'm excited.
So that gives us another reason to go to Atlanta. So if y'all want to go to Atlanta, we can all go to Atlanta and be ATL.
Okay. So we actually have an event coming up with my nonprofit. AJ just played us a little bit. However, the angle that we're coming from is in our community, showing love and how we can use practical resources, mental health resources, theological and spiritual resources to show Black love to our children and to those around us, to show what friendship looks like, because a lot of us haven't seen healthy relationships. So if we start with that agape love, or that unconditional love from God, and then we take from that to help us build our relationships, and then we put the practical part with it through resources, through wisdom from others, how we can improve our communities from the inside out,
and then also incorporate that with bringing others outside of our community who may not understand our culture, so that we know how to love each other and we know how to get together. We can also show other people how to love us and how to treat us in a healthy way. So that's the and we're doing it the day before Juneteenth. So we're gonna get some education the day before Juneteenth, and then on Juneteenth we can turn up and show our black, our green, and our red to represent culture.
Yes. So good stuff, Kelly. Last question, then we rolling out. What are y'all eating tonight? What's on tonight's table? Y'all know I'm gonna eat. Y'all know I love to eat. Y'all know I love food.
I'm putting some air fryer.
What's on tonight's table?
Sure.
We got some fried crabs over here, so I'm hyped.
Okay.
Y'all, so I'm doing the pescatarian diet. So I'm doing some salmon and some snap peas.
Okay, snap peas.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Nah, I feel bad because I got wings in the air fryer.
It's okay.
Do it.
Stir it up.
What you got, AJ?
We're doing Peruvian today. You know, just the chicken, the what do you call it? Rotisserie.
Yes, the Peruvian chicken.
Yeah.
Gotta show everybody love, y'all.
My mama threw it back, y'all. She threw it all the way back. Growing up, I was obsessed with this dish, so much so that I began to not like it as an adult, but I think I'm gonna try it tonight.
What is it?
I guess what it is. Every black mama make it, like every night for dinner.
Spaghetti?
Yes.
Wow.
What is spaghetti?
Wow.
I'm excited. I know you don't. Spaghetti's not my thing anymore, but I'm excited about the spaghetti tonight.
That's
Oh,
fine.
man, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good.
I love y'all, and I'm grateful for y'all joining.
We love you more.
Love you. Thank you, Erin, for providing this space for us.
Of course. Thank you for joining. Thank you for. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
I got it up. Don't forget, y'all, see the nominee up there.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure y'all go vote.
And this is for you, Erin. I don't know if y'all can hear this. All right, those are like sound effects.
Applause, yes. Thank you.
Look, our little cheesy sound effects, y'all. Don't laugh at them. We're gonna do better next time.
Thank you.
Thank
So, y'all,
Yeah,
my daddy is sitting right here in the living room. This is for all of Facebook, and he didn't want to come and talk with us about the gospel according to grandma. And he set up a real nice background for me, but the TV is too bright. He set all of this up.
Man.
So shouts out to my dad.
Shout them out.
Pops.
Love you, Daddy. Oh, all right. So I'm going to play our outro, and then we have a special dedication that's going to come up at the very end. I love y'all so much, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Y'all later. Take care.